halfway through high school, my family moved to a new town, and everything in my life got flipped upside down. My school, friends, sports, church, my life just felt like it got blown apart. I bet some of you have experienced something similar. Well, it was in that season of life when I met Ron. And Ron was the student pastor at the church our family found once we had gotten settled. And I just remember the day we met so clearly. It was as if Ron had come looking specifically for me, because that day he just weaved through a crowd of people at church. He walked straight up to me, reached out his hand, shook my hand, and introduced himself. Which I know, that might sound a little creepy for some of us, but remember, this was a time in my life where I just felt really alone. And from that moment forward, I always looked forward to being around Ron. He just made me feel valued. He was always asking me questions about my life. At the time, I loved basketball, still do. So Ron would even show up to my games, and then he'd talk to me about them later at church. And then in a really non-threatening kind of way, Ron would challenge me in my relationship with Jesus. It was as if Ron saw something in me, some kind of potential that I really couldn't see in myself. And he pushed me to grow, which was uncomfortable at times. But at the same time, it was kind of refreshing. You see, other than the fact that Ron was a Dallas Cowboys fan, he really exuded Christ in everything he did. And he went out of his way to invest in me. I can honestly say that without Ron, my life would look radically different today. Do you have a person like that in your life? Someone who has stepped into your life either in a large or a small way to point you towards Jesus? Maybe a friend who invited you to church? A family friend who invested in your life? A coach maybe who's been encouraging you? Oftentimes, when we slow down enough to look into our past, we see that people have come alongside us to make a difference in our lives. You know, we have a phrase around here for people who are like Ron. It really describes Ron, in my opinion. The acronym is 4 letters, CCDM. If you know what it stands for, go ahead, tell the person next to you. Awesome. Okay, everybody, look back up here. You with me? All right. Hopefully, those of you who've been around for a while, you got that one easily. CCDM is about our goal for CCV students. We want to equip every CCV student here to be a Christ-centered difference maker. We want to help you follow Jesus and lead others to do the same. But how does this actually happen? Is it as simple as putting CCDM on a shirt or maybe in your Instagram bio? If we say it every week, does it just become reality? I wish. So for the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about what we mean when we say we want students to be Christ-centered difference makers. And hopefully, I want to set you up with some practical steps for making that happen. It starts with being Christ-centered. I like how the Apostle Paul describes a Christ-centered life in God's Word. This is Galatians chapter 2, starting in verse 19. What actually took place is this. I tried keeping rules and working my head off to please God, and it didn't work. So I quit being a lawman so that I could be God's man. Christ's life showed me how and enabled me to do it. I identified myself completely with him. Indeed, I have been crucified with Christ. My ego is no longer central. It is no longer important that I appear righteous before you or have your good opinion. And I am no longer driven to impress God. Christ lives in me. The life you see me living is not mine, but it is lived by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I am not going to go back on that. Again, I think Paul describes a Christ-centered person just perfectly. This person isn't about their own ego. They aren't trying to impress God or people. The Christ-centered person simply allows Jesus to guide every area of their life. Where do they get that guidance? Well, they get it right here. They let God's word guide them. They don't make decisions based on feelings or the opinions of friends or social media. They put their trust in what God says. And CCV students, I know this may sound basic, but you can't live a Christ-centered life without God's word in your life consistently. Without God's word, a Jesus follower might as well be trying to ride a bike through the neighborhood blindfolded. You're gonna crash and you'll never make it where you wanna go. Let me throw out a challenge for those of you who need to work on this. I call it the 3 1s. Every day, here's what you do. You read one chapter of the Bible, you underline one verse that sticks out to you, and you say one prayer. For those of you wondering where to start, what do I underline, or how can I grow at praying? That's a perfect thing for you to discuss in your groups here in a few minutes. But before we get there, let's finish up. See, we covered the Christ-centered part. Now let's talk about being difference makers. I'll quote Jesus' own words from Matthew chapter 5 to explain this part. You're here to be light, bringing out the God colors in the world. God is not a secret to be kept. We're going public with this, as public as a city on a hill. If I make you light bearers, you don't think I'm going to hide you under a bucket, do you? I'm putting you on a light stand. Now that I've put you there on a hilltop, on a light stand, shine. Keep open house. Be generous with your lives. By opening up to others, you'll prompt people to open up with God, this generous Father in heaven. I love those words from Jesus. He's calling us to be like light in the world. What does light do? Well, when you think about it, it eliminates darkness. Light makes a difference for everyone and everything that it touches. I wonder, are you like light? Are you a difference maker for Jesus Christ? Are you someone who people interact with and think, there's something different about her. There's something different about him. He's so kind. She's so patient. He's so courageous. She's so forgiving. He's so encouraging. She's so bold. That person is so loving. Wow, that person reminds me of Jesus. This, CCV students, is a difference maker. We talk about being a CCDM, a Christ-centered difference maker, all the time around here, but oftentimes I feel like we love the idea of being one, but very rarely do we consider how we are actively becoming one. And this isn't something that's just gonna happen overnight. It's a daily grind, a daily commitment to run after Jesus. So right now in your groups, I just want you to think through, which part of being a Christ-centered difference maker do you personally need to work on? And hear me on this. If CCDM continues to become more than just an acronym on a shirt and more like actual CCV students in their families, in their schools, and on their teams, wow, I'm telling you, people are gonna notice. And we'll see Jesus become more and more famous across the valley. Listen, I'm in for this. And I know this, your coaches are in for this. How about you?